Namaskar. Welcome to the next lecture on computer networks hosted by CEC. In my last lecture, I was talking about topology. Just to recap, topology is the physical representation of the devices, how they are connected to each other, and what is the way in which they are going to share data with each other. That representation represents topology. We did mesh topology last time, and today we will do star topology. So this is the way these devices are connected in a star topology. Each device has a dedicated point-to-point link with a central controller. This is called a hub. As you can see, unlike the mesh topology, these devices are not connected to each other directly. So if this device has data for this device, then it cannot communicate directly. It has to send data to this hub, which is acting like an exchange. The hub thereafter will relay the data to the desired destination. This is the main difference between a star topology and a mesh topology. None of the devices communicating are directly connected. They are all connected via the hub. Now, if we look at the various advantages of star topology, then it is generally more cheap than a mesh topology. To install a star topology does not cost as much money as it costed for getting a mesh topology working. That's because one reason is that each node here needs to have only one input-output port and only one link to connect to the hub and become part of a network. If you remember, in the mesh topology, each device had to be individually connected to every other device in the network. So, if there were n devices, then every computer required n-1 ports and n-1 links. So, this is substantially reduced in a star topology, and because of that there is a ease of installation and reconfiguration. Initial installation doesn't take too much of effort because every device needs to have one input output port and one link connects that to the central hub. It also requires much less cabling than mesh topology, but star does not require the least amount of cabling. There are other topologies which require even less cabling. Now, addition of devices in star is very easy. Just put one more device from the input output of the device, connect that directly to the hub. The other devices do not get affected when you add a device or when you move a device, or even when you delete a device. It does not affect the topology working. So, additions, moves, deletions are relatively easy in a star topology. Star topology is considered to be very, very robust in the sense that the fault identification and the fault isolation is comparatively easier. Now, supposing this device goes down or this link breaks, the hub will monitor the defect. It will bypass the defective link and the other part of the network will continue to work. It's not as if one device not working properly will bring down the topology. So, it is considered to be fairly robust, but the main problem in this is the hub. If hub goes down, then the entire network breaks down. There is no way the communication can happen between any of the devices if the hub breaks down. So, this center point hub is very critical in a star topology, and that is the weakness of the star topology. This kind of a topology is used in high-speed local area networks, and it is generally most of these topologies find use in LANs, and star topology specifically is used with high-speed LANs. So, this is about star topology. Let's move on to another topology which is called as bus topology, the third topology that we are going to discuss, the bus topology. In bus topology, the entire length of the network is covered by this back end cable. There is a cable which runs along the entire length of the network. Now, devices which need to communicate are connected to this cable through what is called as a drop line and a connector which is called a tap. The pink thing that you see is a tap, and this line is a link which is just connecting the station with the cable. Now, the connector, which is a tap, it generally splices through this cable, or sometimes it just punctures the sheath of the cable and makes a connection with the internal metallic core, and that's how the station gets connected with the cable. Now, these taps, they need to be monitored. You cannot have an infinitely long length of the cable with any number of taps. What happens is that when a station wants data to be sent to another station on this network, it will give it to this cable via the drop line using the taps. And as this data will move away from the sending station, some of its energy is lost as heat. And as a result, as it travels away from the station, it starts getting weaker. So there is a limit as to what is the maximum length of this cable that can be used in this topology. Otherwise, it is very easy to install. The installation of bus topology is not complex at all. You just need to lay down this back end cable along the entire length of the room where you are implementing this. So, most of your computer labs in your schools and colleges, they may be implementing a bus topology. It was very, very popular some time back, but now because higher speeds of LANs are being demanded, so bus topology is now becoming a little obsolete and less popular. But it is very, very easy to install, and it requires very, very less cabling compared to the other two topologies, which is the star and the mesh. The cabling only is about this one long cable. The rest of these drop lines are usually based at a point which suffices with the minimum length, and it brings the station as close as possible to the cable. So, cabling is not an issue in bus topology. What is a main issue is a reconnection. When you install a bus topology network, it is best at installation. The optimum transfers of data, speeds, minimum delays happen when you design it as you had envisaged it and the way you had planned it. Now, later if you want to add more devices, then sometimes the optimality is not restored, and it sometimes you have to kind of modify the backbone, or sometimes you have to replace the backbone, which is a major effort. So, reconnection and addition of new devices is not all that simple in bus topology. The second problem is also the fault isolation. Now, supposing there is a break in this cable from here. Now, this damaged area, even if it is segregating my entire topology into two units, none of the units will be able to function. This damaged area will reflect some signals back to the origin, and it creates noise. So, break in the back end cable, like the hub in the star topology, is very critical. It will not let the topology network function. It will just bring the whole network down. You can also see here that the connections are a little different from the way we had seen in the star topology. These connections are called multi-point connections. I had explained that in my earlier lecture. There are two kinds of connections, point to point and multi-point. In our earlier two topologies, mesh and star, the connections were point to point. But in this, you can see that multiple stations are connected to the same cable. So, this is kind of a multi-drop or a multi-point connection. There is one more source of error here. These taps have the tendency to reflect the signals. Signal meaning when the station has data to send, it will definitely go through its tap. And this tap generally has some signal reflections which degrades the quality of the signal on this network. So, that is an additional reason why you need to limit the number of taps and the distance between the taps in the bus topology. Moving on to another category, this is a ring topology. In ring topology, every station is connected to two other stations. It is not connected to every station. It is not connected to a central exchange, which is called the hub. It is not connected to one common cable either. Every station is connected to two stations which are called its immediate neighbors. Analogous to the tap that we had in bus topology, we have something called as a repeater in this topology. Repeater is a network device. They are called the connecting devices. This repeater has the capability of reading the address of every station on this network. So whenever a station has data to send, it will send it on this common ring which is connecting every station in the network. It will read the address and it will pass on the data. Usually the movement of the data is unidirectional. So you can either choose to have data move clockwise or you can choose to move it anti-clockwise, and whatever you have designed for, the data will continuously move in that direction only. And data will move from one station to another station via its repeater. Repeater will check the address of the destination. If it is meant for its station, it will pass it on to the station. If it is not meant for this, it will pass it on. And in this way, the data will keep moving from one station to another till it reaches its destination. So this is the way the ring topology is going to work. Now this again is quite easy to install. It is quite easy to reconfigure. That means supposing I want to remove the station, I just need to reconfigure two of these connections. This removes, and this connection from this repeater goes directly into this. I can even add one more device. Again, I need to reconfigure only two connections, not more. So that way the installation and reconfiguration is quite easy in a ring topology. Even the fault isolation and identification is easy, because once a station does not receive a data packet for some time, it can easily raise an alarm, and that could be because of a break in the ring, or maybe because one repeater is not functioning, or maybe one station is malfunctioning. So if for a very long time a station does not receive any data, maybe this, it can easily raise an alarm. But yes, the length of the ring cannot be too long. So you cannot have too many stations here. So media and traffic is a disadvantage. You cannot have too much of traffic because then it will cause congestion, and you cannot have too long a length of this ring. Otherwise it will take very long for two neighbors on the other side. Neighbors on the other side means if the data is going in this direction, then this is the neighbor for this station on the other side. This will take a very long time to receive the data. And as I mentioned, fault isolation is relatively easy. Now there is one problem, that supposing the ring breaks, as in the case of our bus topology or in the case of star. In case of star, if the hub goes down, or in the case of bus topology, if the back end cable breaks. Similarly here, if the ring breaks, then there is a problem, and some of the network configurations implemented two rings. So one redundant ring was implemented in case the main ring disconnects or has a break, then the redundant ring takes over till the original ring is repaired. Also, some ring topologies use the concept of a token. That's called a token ring topology. IBM introduced that, and in that case there is a token which is always going around in this ring. Whichever station wishes to transmit data, it will first take the token. Now once the token is taken, then every other station is alerted, and they know that there is a station which is going to be sending data very soon. When the station is finished with sending its data, it releases the token back into the ring. So token is something which has to be taken prior to sending data. So this is about ring topology. Now you could have a network which is implementing one of these topologies just by themselves, or you can also have networks which implement two or more together. Then it's called a hybrid topology. See, this is an example of a hybrid topology. Here you see the main topology is a star topology. The main topology is called as the backbone topology. So in this diagram, the star is the backbone topology. The star is supporting, as you can see, a bus topology here, a ring topology here, and another star topology here. And it can support many more topologies depending upon the capability of the hub. If the hub has more ports, it can support more topologies, and they can be a similar kind of a combination. You could have more stars, you could have more rings, but since it's a combination of more than one topology, this is called hybrid topology. This is another example of a hybrid topology. Here again, the backbone is a star. You can see this hub, it has 3 ports, but each of the arms of the hub is supporting an identical topology. Each of the arms is supporting a bus topology. So these are not different, but they are similar, yet it is called a hybrid topology because it's a mixture of two. There is one backbone star and there are 3 bus. Now this is also a topology where there is a mixture of topologies, but the different topologies are basically similarly configured. There is a hub, then there are smaller hubs. That means there is one main star topology and then there are smaller star topologies. The main topology is carried forth in various branches. So it's not that I will have a star mixed with a ring and a tree and a bus. No, if I have a hub as the main, then there have to be hubs in the subsequent branches also. If it is a star here, then the subsequent branches also have star topologies. In that case, it is a specialized kind of a hybrid topology and it is called a tree topology. So if I start with a bus, then all other branches also have bus. So the same topology but different networks is a tree topology, a special case of hybrid topology. Now I am just trying to show you what is the best way to represent these mixture topologies, hybrid or tree. As you can see here, this will be termed as a hybrid topology because it is, the backbone is star and it is supporting 3 rings. It is supporting 3 rings. So it is a hybrid topology. Now whenever we have to show these hybrid topologies, it is mandatory to show a hub with these ports. And if I am showing rings, then I must show these repeaters. These repeaters have to be shown. If I am showing a bus topology, I must show the links, the data links and the taps. Let me show you something which is not desirable. If a diagram is shown like this, then usually we do not consider it to be a good depiction because no computer can be connected with just a piece of wire. It is just not possible. You have to go through your switches and your repeaters. So this is also a star backbone with 3 ring networks, but the depiction is not appropriate. This is the way you should show a hub, a star hub with these 3 ring networks showing the repeaters. Now this was one way of dividing our networks, that was on the basis of the way they were connected to each other and the way they were making a geometric pattern. So that was on the basis of the topology. There is another way on the basis of which we can categorize our networks, and that is on the basis of their sizes. How big a network is, how small a network is, that also gives us a way to categorize a network. So is it spread over a room? Is it spread over a building? Is it spread over a city, over a continent? So on the basis of that, also you make categories of network. And today when we talk about size based categories of network, there are two main kinds of networks that kind of spring up. One is a local area network and the other is a wide area network. And these are usually used in a abbreviated form. So a local area network is popularly called as a LAN, L-A-N, local area network, and a wide area network is called a WAN, which is wide area network. Local area networks are usually privately owned and they are generally extending over one room or maybe in one full building, maximum within one campus. So they extend approximately over 2 miles of area, not larger than that. So if they are in a room, they would probably occupy a distance of 10 meters. The various devices would probably be 10 meters apart. So for instance, in your computer laboratory, it's kind of the entire network is within one room. You could also have LANs within a building. So one office building could be supporting one LAN, and there the interprocessor distance is roughly about 100 meters. An entire campus, like for instance University of Delhi South Campus, they could also be working under one local area network and maybe over a radius of 1 kilometer. So these are small sized networks and they are usually catering to one particular organization. Then you have wide area networks which are really huge and they span a country or a continent. So they are over 100 kilometers, 1000 kilometers, spanning this kind of a distance between various processors. The distance is from 100 kilometers to 1000 kilometers. Now these are not the only two kinds of networks. Local area network is a small network and a wide area network is a large network, and between these two networks there is something called as a metropolitan area network called a MAN. Metropolitan area network, that's also abbreviated as MAN, and that spans a city. So one campus, a city and a country or a continent is what distinguishes a LAN from a MAN and from a WAN. And the smallest network now is defined to be a personal area network. Personal area network is meant to be used by one person, and usually it is just around one person. Now let's see what kind of networks would make a personal area network. Now if you see this example, every one of us has been using a personal area network. I have a computer, I have the peripherals for the computer, and those peripherals are connected with my monitor. And I am using a printer, I am using a keyboard, I am using a mouse, I am probably using headphones as well. And this will constitute my personal area network, a PAN for me. There could be different kinds of PANs. We'll come back very soon and we will resume our discussion on personal area networks.